Hello beautiful, welcome back to Nat's Beautiful Life. Today I'm going to be sharing with you my best or favorite books of the year so far. I was originally going to do January through July 15th, but then I did another book after that that I think has to be on this list, and we'll see if it stays through the end of the year. So at the end of the year, come back and we'll see if some of these made it to that list for like the best of the year. Be sure you are subscribed so you never miss a video. And the next video that comes up should be my July wrap up. So you don't want to miss that because I've done a lot of really good books in July, and there's a special little twist on my TBR for July. Anyway, thank you guys again for watching and tuning in today. Please like the video, subscribe if you haven't already, and let's just get into what I'm doing. So for the best books of the year so far, and if you hear something moving around in my office, it's my Dalmatian Barry. I looked at all the books that I've read for each month, and I tried to pick out like a book and an audiobook, like which one stuck out. That was my headspace, but it didn't exactly work out that way. Some months there were only like a good audiobook, or there was only like a good book, or maybe two audiobooks, whatever, but that was my goal, and this is what I wound up with. All right, there's quite a few books here, so I'm just gonna go ahead and start with January and move down. So with January, two of the books that I chose for this were actually two books. So the first one is A History of Wild Places by Shay Earnshaw. This one I put on here as a favorite. I really enjoyed this book. It was very atmospheric, and that's kind of the best thing I could say about it. It's atmospheric, there is a mystery, there's some weirdness going on. I know some people either love this book or hate this book. I loved it, and it is going to be following kind of a person who his gift is to find people who have gone missing. A very well-known children's author goes missing, and she is kind of spotted going towards this certain area, and he discovers there's like a cult there, and there's a bunch of weirdness that goes on, and I was here for it. It was perfect for the time that I was reading it, and I highly recommend it. The next book I actually do own, but someone's borrowing it, and that is The Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix. It's the first book by Grady Hendrix I have read. I've since read several more by him. I love this because it was just what I needed at the time. There's a mystery going on, and basically the setup is there is a support group of girls who are the final girls. So in those like 80s, early 90s slasher movies, there was always one girl left to tell the story, and so there's a group of girls who have this type of trauma that meet together, and they're older now and all of that. So and then one by one somebody tries to start picking them off, and you know, zaniness. I say zaniness, but it's, you know, craziness ensues. There are some zany parts that aren't supposed to be zany, but they just are to me, just the way it was written. This book is a little difficult at times as far as like some of the things that you experience and read and you know, things that happen, but it was a good time. It was very much a nostalgia kind of thing as well, but I really enjoyed this book, and I really liked Hendrix's writing. The next book I have, and this is also in January, and this was a book I got at the library, and it's called The Last Days of Video by Jeremy Hawkins. I'm reading out of my notebook here. This is a North Carolina author, and this takes place in North Carolina, and it was right around the time I was really into like looking at the Blockbuster nostalgia and things like that. And this is about a video store that's like a local video store, and it's basically what they did to try to keep themselves afloat and all of that. And it's really a story about the family that is working together in this video store. It's not really a family, it's like found family, but I really enjoyed that one. For February, I have two books to mention. One is it's Frenchman's Creek by Daphne du Maurier. I still can't say it. This was such a surprise for me. I thought this was going to be like another kind of scary kind of horror thing, but it wasn't. It's more of a romance. but, and I'm not a romance reader. So when I saw that it was a romance book, I was like, but I read it and it's phenomenal. Like, so good. It's a pirate story, and you have like the English countryside, you have all this craziness going on. It's such a delightful story, and I don't want to tell you too much about it. Just go in it blind and enjoy. The next book was The Stationery Shop, and that is by Marjan Kamali. This is one I read because it was like a most anticipated release for someone, or one that they really enjoyed, like one of their favorites. Something like that I had gotten off of recommendation from another YouTuber, and I loved this book. It takes place mostly in Iran and the 50s, and then you move over to the US, and it is a love story, but it's not. It's about so much more, and then you follow our main character, you know, throughout her life, but then you also get kind of this lost love story that reconnects towards the end. This is a wonderful book. You'll learn a lot of things, and I just enjoyed it so much, so I cannot recommend it enough. And by the way, The Stationery Shop is where she and this young man meet, I believe. But there's also a lot of other stuff going on in The Stationery Shop. Trust me, get you some. It's a good book, and you won't go wrong with that one. The third book for February was actually an audiobook, and it's one of my favorite books and one of my favorite series of all time, and that is Us Against You by Fredrik Backman, read by Marin, Ireland. And it's a very cold town in a hockey like crazed area. So much happens. Just pick up that series. That's all I'm gonna say. Definitely a great follow-up to the original, which is Beartown, and the third one is coming out this year. Cannot wait. And the audiobook narrator is just phenomenal for that. All right, so let's go to March. March, I only have one book, and that is The Night Shift by Alex Finlay. This is one of the first mystery books I have read in a long time where you didn't have to dumb down anybody. You didn't have to make the plot work. It literally all came together. There's a murder that happens 1999, December 31st at a Blockbuster. Fast forward many years later, and a similar type of mass murder occurs in an ice cream store, and you see things merge together. It works. It's wonderful. The audiobook narrators are awesome. Highly recommend this book, especially if you like mysteries, but you're like me, you've just kind of been over them for so long because they're so predictable, or they have to dumb down, like this lawyer, this doctor, this someone who's supposed to be really smart. You have to dumb them down to make the plot work. If you're sick of that, then this is definitely a book that you want to pick up. For April, I have another audiobook, and that is The 100-Year-Old Man Who Hopped Out the Window, Climbed Out the Window, and Disappeared by Jonasson. This is a phenomenal book. And again, it came to me when I needed it most. It's hilarious. It is a translated book from Swedish, I believe, and it's just, or is it from Norway? One of those. And it's just phenomenal. The narrator was awesome. Get you some. All right. May. I have a couple from May. One is The Four Winds by Kristen Hanna. Phenomenal. Takes place in the Dust Bowl during the Great Depression, and then they travel, become migrant workers in California, and it is a family drama as well as just the landscape, the area, everything. The time is just a character in and of itself. Absolutely amazing. My first Kristen Hanna book has not been my last, and I highly recommend this one, especially if you love historical fiction that takes place during a time and has like real events kind of mixed in. I just cannot sing the praises of that book enough. It's good. What else do I have here? I have Breathless by Amy McCullough, which I didn't realize I had put this on there. She's right there, that book. This one I picked because it was a surprise and a really good, like, atmospheric book. So you are climbing a mountain that is over 4,000 meters high. So it's one of the big ones. And you have to kind of acclimate yourself to get up there. But it's very isolated because you can, as you can imagine, not anybody can just go climb that mountain. There's lots of training and all this stuff involved. But people start disappearing and dying and all of that. And so there's a murderer on this mountain, but it has to be like from a certain group of people because that's the only people there. And very atmospheric, very interesting the way it all turns around, the twists, the turns, all of that. There's high stakes with everything because everything when you're doing that kind of climbing is high stakes. And I really enjoyed it. It was a surprise, I think, is what really got me the most. If you hear snoring, that's my dog. Another book that I loved this month was Black Cake by Charmaine Wilkerson. I did this as an audiobook. The audiobook's phenomenal, and I will have all the audio people listed down below. There's also, I'll link my audiobook narrators with books for the year like list down below. You can click it and it'll show you every audiobook I've read this year along with the narrator and how I liked the narrator. And I'm only like judging the narrators in that list. But anyway, you're following a brother and sister whose mother has passed away. She leaves them like a recording to listen to or watch or something, and she is basically telling them a story, and from that they kind of learn a little bit more about their mother and her background. Absolutely phenomenal. And yeah, it's just good. It's kind of like there's some historical fiction in there and some things they have no idea about their lives or their heritage mixed in there. So absolutely enjoyed that one. The next one, Violetta by Isabel Allende. Number one, this cover is gorgeous. Secondly, I'm in love with Isabel Allende's writing now. I have so far been trying to pick up everything by her. I think I've read 3 or 4 books by her so far already since this book, which was in June. We are in July, if that tells you something. I've highly enjoyed her writing. This book in particular follows Violetta for 100 years. You start when she's born in 1920, learn a little bit of her family, her background, and then all the way through the year 2020 when she passes away. She's writing to Camellia. Who was she writing to? Anyway, she's writing to somebody. You'll see it. Whenever Carmelito? Something. I can't remember. But she's writing to this person and you find out who they are later on in the book. But so good. Her writing's wonderful. You learn a lot about Chile. It gave me a little bit of like extra peace too, because with everything that's going on in our world and our country, you see all the things because Chile itself is a character in this book, and you see how strangely their government changed and so quickly throughout that 100 years that you see everything just happens over and over and over again. Don't worry about it. But I really enjoyed that book. I highly recommend that. You can start, if you want to start with Isabel Allende, I recommend either that, Violette, or A Long Petal of the Sea, either one of those. Great to start with. The other book that I fell in love with in June was A Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. The audiobook is phenomenal. It is just Bahni Turpin the whole way through, but every voice is distinct, and I think that even made the book even better. It is takes place, I think, in the 90s, and there's just a housewife who sees really weird things. They're in a book club. She realizes we got like some sort of vampire problem, and what they wind up having to do to take care of it. It's good times, and I can totally see what he said. He said when he was writing this book, he looked and said, what happens if I put my mom versus Dracula? And that's what he wrote the book about, and it works. This is funny because I forgot about this. July. We have 2 books. One is A Long Petal of the Sea by Isabel Allende, wherever that came from. Yeah, already told you I'm loving her books, and either one of those books are great to start with, Violetta or A Long Petal of the Sea. This one follows 2 okay, so this is what happens. We start out in the Spanish Civil War in Spain. There are 2 brothers, and their family has taken in a girl who's growing up and is, you know, a grown-up. The soldier, and there's a doctor. That's the brothers. The soldier falls in love with the girl. They are going to get married. She's pregnant. He dies. So everybody, after the Spanish Civil War, a lot of people flee to France. The other brother finds her, and then there's a ship going from France to Chile to take these refugees, and in order to be on the ship, they basically have to be a family. So they get married in order to get on the ship and go to Chile, and there's your basic setup. But there's so much to this book, and it's just powerful. Again, you see the unrest in Spain and the way things are happening in France, and then you move over to Chile, and then you wind up in exile in Argentina, and then you're going all these different places, and along the way there is this family drama happening, and it's just phenomenal. Her writing is like warm, buttery, just goodness, and I love it. It just flows so well. Awesome. And then the last book that I'm going to mention, because boy oh boy do I have enough, and I think this is like 15 books that I've mentioned to you guys, and this is the one that I finished a little after the 15th, and I still am, I've got mixed feelings about a couple things. I gave it 5 stars, and what I mixed feelings about is there's a lot of wokeness in this book, which I despise. I despise wokeness, just be a person. But that is Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. This book made me feel, maybe I am like interested to see if this makes it to the end of the year. Like I know it's one of the best so far this year. One I've really enjoyed this month. My star rating kept going up and down with it. I wound up giving it 5 stars just because I was so enamored with this book. It's really good, but there are some parts, there's some bad characters in here who do bad things, and I think the point is not to look at them and say, you know, that's okay. It's not okay. I think it's just these characters' journeys and the things that they went through. There's some inappropriate things in here. So, you know, I don't recommend this for children. But Gabrielle Zevin is just has this wonderful way of writing, and she has this wonderful way of writing things in different ways. There's an entire section that's written in just gameplay. This is about 2. There's other people who are main characters as well, but the 2 main characters, which are Sadie and Sam, they are game developers, game writers, creators, and there's a whole section in here that's just written in gameplay. And just because of the literary like masterpiece of that, I think her writing is what makes me lift this level up. You know, subject matter aside, wokeness aside, you know, as a person who majored in literature, 2nd round in college, I absolutely appreciate the writing in this book so much, and it's definitely one of the best written books on this list. So, just be prepared that there's some wokeness in there, and some political stuff that isn't like, again, this is taking place from like the 90s to the now, or even further in the future. So some of it is political for back in the day. It's not really like whatever. So some of that was kind of like unnecessary, I feel like, but I understand why it's in there because it sets up for something else. That's all I'm gonna say. So those are my 15 books that I think are some of the best, or at least some of my favorites that I have read so far this year. Again, I think some of these may fall off for like the final 10 or 15 that I come up with for the end of the year, but some are gonna stay, and I will try to pick at least one Allende book instead of having two on the list. But yeah, that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate you being here. Be sure to check out the description box for Audiobook Narrators, as well as you know, the list of the books from the whatever. You can check out my Goodreads as well. That is linked down below always, and you will see every book that I have read this year and my rating for them and all of that. Okay, that's it. Thank you guys again for watching. I will see you again next week, I believe, with my July wrap-up, so don't miss it. And I don't know why I'm stalling, so have a great day, gorgeous.